Okay, we have completed that part, right?
Okay, sir.
Uh, uh, so I welcome you to this session for the course number 2 or paper 2. Today we will start. I have uploaded some study material also
Yes, sir.
on your common WhatsApp, and that study material talks about the period that is a part of our study, Renaissance to Jacobean age.
Yes, sir.
Now, today I would discuss what are the main features of the Renaissance. Now, if we try to categorize or if we try to date the age, we would say that roughly the period from Renaissance to Jacobean age is spread over the year 1300 to 1600. That is, this period began in the beginning of 14th century and ended in the beginning of the 17th century. This is roughly the period, or let us say at the end of the 16th century, this period came to an end. Now the question arises, what were the salient features of this age and why this age was so important for a student of literature? And therefore, I would be talking about some very significant points and how this age impacted the creation of literature, the emergence of a new sort of art, and several other things. Now, if we look at the meaning of the word Renaissance, you will come to know that Renaissance means reawakening. And the people were awakened from the long slumber or the long sleep of the Middle Ages, when superstitions prevailed over everything and whatever came from the church that was considered to be final. So, if we talk about this age brought an end to the Middle Ages. This age, that is the Renaissance, brought an end to the Middle Ages. It marked a period when the Middle Ages ended and the new period began. Now, secondly, if we look at the beginning of the Renaissance, we would find that the Renaissance began in Italy in the beginning of the 14th century and then continued in the Western Europe in 15th century and finally in the 16th century it reached England. So there were stages of development. You need to remember that the Renaissance started in Italy, then from Italy it went to Western Europe in the 15th century, and it was only in the 16th century that the Renaissance came to England. Now, this Renaissance impacted architecture, painting, not only architecture and painting, but literature also, and sculpture also. So basically, there were four areas, major areas that were impacted. Number one, it was the area of architecture. It was the area of painting that was impacted. It was the area of sculpture that was impacted. And it was the area of literature that was impacted. I would be talking about all these four areas when I deal with this in detail. So, right now, what you need to remember is that Renaissance means reawakening, and this was the reawakening from the long slumber of the Middle Ages when no person could reason, and whatever came from the church was considered to be the final command which everybody had to obey. Now, these dark ages, therefore, they came to an end when the Renaissance began. Number two, as I said, it began in Italy, and from Italy it went to West Europe or Western Europe, and from the Western Europe it went to England in the 16th century. There were four major areas which were impacted because of Renaissance. Number one, it was architecture that was impacted or influenced. Then painting was influenced. then sculpture was influenced, and then literature was also influenced. Now, if we look at the Renaissance period, we come to know it was the beginning of the modern age because it paved the way for the use of English for poetic purposes. It paved the way for the use of English for poetic purposes. It was influenced also, and as a result, they became aware of the glorious culture of the East also and their own culture also. So they and therefore when they found that their own culture was so glorious, their past ancient culture, that awakened their interest in the growth of their culture, and therefore that gave rise to the spirit of inquiry, that gave rise to the spirit of questioning. And it was because of this that the spirit of individualism developed. Now, I would not accept what you would say, but I would like to ask, why should I do it if I do it? Why should I do it? Otherwise, what was happening in the dark ages, whatever came from the church, that was supposed to be an order for everyone to follow, and therefore, no one has got any individual freedom. Now, with the beginning of Renaissance, individual freedom came into vogue. A person could say that if I follow this, why should I follow this? And these questions, they kept coming up. It is because of this questioning spirit, it is because of the Renaissance spirit that a lot of literature also flowed during this period. Now, after I have briefed you about the Renaissance age, from the Renaissance age we entered into the age of Jacob, that is the Jacobean age. Now the question arises, why do we call it Jacobean age? Renaissance, because that was one of the significant event that happened during that period. Renaissance. Renaissance means reawakening. Reawakening of what? Reawakening of the interest in the ancient glorious past. That was reawakening. And that is why it was named a Renaissance. People became interested in their own culture, in their own glorious ancient past. And that is why it was given the name. They thought that even their past was very glorious, and if they tried to follow that past again, they could emerge as the advanced people of the world. Now, after the Renaissance, we come to Jacobean age. As I said, it was the age of King James first. It was the age of King James first. Now, James, why Jacobean then? Now, in Latin, James is called Jacob, and therefore it is because of the Latin name that this age is called after the name James as Jacobean. We don't call it the age from Renaissance to King James age, but we call it from Renaissance to Jacobean age because in Latin, James means Jacob stands for James, and therefore Jacobian. So it was the period of King James, who is means and Jacob is the name that describes him in a Latin language. Now, from literary point of view, if we look at literary point of view, we shall find that there were some significant writers, and we have studied some of them. Who were the writers? There was a very famous prose writer, and it was nobody else but Francis Bacon. There was a great poet, and who was that great poet? We have already studied that great poet. It was John Donne. And then there were other poets also, like Edmund Spenser, Surrey, and Wyatt. These were the people who were the part of this era. And before this, even Dante, Divine Comedy. All right, it was up to Divine Comedy that the dark ages were there. It was after Divine Comedy that we demarcate that age as the age of Renaissance. So to this period belongs the prose writers like Bacon, the poets like Edmund Spenser, William and Surrey, and John Donne, and then there were the dramatists also who belonged to this age. Christopher Marlowe was one of the significant playwright who belonged to this. Then the person who wrote The Duchess of Malfi, and then there was a very Ben Jonson also belonged to this era, and then William Shakespeare, one of the prominent figures or the playwrights, he also belonged to this age. So there were very famous playwrights also who belonged to this era, and among them we can count the name of Ben Jonson, we can count the name of Christopher Marlowe, we can count the name of the writer, I have forgotten the name of that writer, the writer of the Duchess of Malfi, and to a certain extent even the poetry of John Dryden also began to come into vogue at this time. After this came the age of Elizabeth or Elizabethan age. After uh, after James First, it was the Queen Elizabeth who descended to the throne of England. When she became the queen, she was only 25, and she became a queen in very difficult times. It was a difficult time because there was a war going on with France. There was a war going on with France, number one. Number two, the treasures were empty and the queen had to do a lot of things for the people. And then there was a great deal of poverty. People had become very poor, and therefore, even to improve the economic situation of the country was also a challenge before the queen. Now, the queen tried to bring solution to these problems, and how she did she did this. She made peace with France now, and therefore the war came to an end. In religious matters, she allied with the Protestants. If you look at Christianity, the Catholics and the Protestants, they were rising, the banner of rebellion, and therefore what she did, she she allied with the Protestants, means she in a way took the Protestants in confidence, and she tried to unite English people within one church. Now, different church had come into being at that time. There were different churches, Saint Anglican or so on and so forth. Now they were united under one single church so that the unity of the people may be ensured. Now, after that, if we look at the trade, now she allowed even the Protestant refugees, which was one of the branch of Christianity, for trade. They could also carry on their trade. The Protestants were allowed to carry on their trade, and then she encouraged sea voyages also to find the new lands and works for English people. And as a result, several places were discovered. Like if you talk about the discovery of India and even the discovery of America, India was discovered by Vasco da Gama and America was discovered by Columbus. These discoveries were made during this period only. Now, as far as the literature is concerned, there were certain branches that came into being. For example, the sonnet came into being. We have talked about Surrey and Bayard. Now, Surrey and Bayard were the people who introduced sonnet into English poetry. One introduced the English sonnet, and the other one introduced the Petrarchan sonnet, and both of them belong to this era. Now, lyric also came into being, and lyric was a poem that was longer than the sonnet proper, and it was known for its melody. Lyric means the melodious poem. And in these melodious poems, it was the subjectivity that mattered. And in these melodious poems, the the flow of thoughts, the sentiments, they were given precedence over reasoning. So lyrics came into vogue and a number of lyrics were written. And then there was the blank verse that came into being. And when we talk about blank verse, it was employed by almost all the writers of the era. It is a 5 foot iambic, unrhymed verse. 5 foot. A foot comprises stressed, unstressed syllable. Iambic, unrhymed verse. There is no rhyme scheme in it. So this was employed and this came into being in England for the first time. Right, blank verse. So from literary point of view, sonnet came into being, lyric flourished, and then blank verse was also employed very marvelously by the writers who belong to this era. Now, when we talk about the sonnets, as I said to you, there were two types of sonnets which were written during this age. Number one, it was the Petrarchan sonnet, or later on it was also known as Miltonic sonnet, or it was also known as as link sonnet. So there were as many as three names. It was called Petrarchan sonnet because it was introduced by Petrarch in Italy. And then it was marvelously used by Wyatt. It was Wyatt who brought Petrarchan sonnet into English, and therefore it is also called it is also called the Petrarchan sonnet because Petrarch introduced and Wyatt brought it into English language. And then Milton made use of this sonnet marvelously, and therefore it is after the name of Milton that it is also given the name Miltonic sonnet, John Milton. And then the third one, link sonnet, because in this sonnet there are two parts, octave and sestet. The first 8 lines are known as octave, and the last 6 lines are known as sestet. And there was a link between the octave and the sestet by the use of a coordinator. And this coordinator would usually introduce something different and would combine or would join the sestet with the octave. And therefore, it was on this basis that it came to be known as link sonnet also. So there were three names for this: Petrarchan sonnet because Petrarch introduced it, Italian sonnet because it flourished in Italy, and then number three, Miltonic sonnet, because in English it was the poet Milton who marvelously made use of it. Now, as far as the structure of the sonnet is concerned, there were two parts of the sonnet. Number one, the octave, and number two, the sestet. Octave were the first 8 lines of the sonnet, and sestet were the last 6 lines of the sonnet. Now, since they were connected, octave and sestet were connected by a coordinator, this was also given the name, or some of the writers call it a link sonnet also. The rhyme scheme of the sonnet was A B D D C C D C or C D E and C D C. Means the rhyme scheme of the sestet was not fixed, but the rhyme scheme of the octave was fixed. Right, so this was something about the Petrarchan sonnet or the Italian sonnet or the Miltonic sonnet or the link sonnet. I have given you 4 names of the sonnets. You need to remember Petrarchan because it was the poet Petrarch who introduced it. Italian sonnet because it was the place, it was in Italy that this sonnet flourished. And then number three, Miltonic sonnet, because it was the poet Milton who marvelously made use of the form. And then number four, link sonnet, because there is a link found between the octave and the sestet in the sonnet. After having talked about this, there was another sonnet also that came into being, and that was called English sonnet or Shakespearean sonnet. English sonnet, it was introduced by surrey into English poetry, and therefore it came to be known as English sonnet. It came to be known as English sonnet. It was introduced by an English poet, and therefore English sonnet. And thereafter, Shakespeare made use of this form of sonnet very marvelously, and therefore it came to be known as Shakespearean sonnet also. Now, if we look at the structure of this sonnet, we will find that the structure altogether different from that of the Petrarchan sonnet. If we look at the Petrarchan sonnet or the Miltonic sonnet or the Italian sonnet, we find that a sonnet was a poem of 14 lines. Now, in the same way, even the Shakespearean sonnet or the English sonnet was a poem of 14 lines. But then the form was different. The structure, the way these 14 lines were structured was different. In the case of the Petrarchan sonnet, the 14 lines were divided into two parts. The first 8 lines were known as octave, and the concluding 6 lines were known as sestet. But in the case of the Shakespearean sonnet, now there were three uh, quatrains and one concluding couplet. The sonnet was divided into three quatrains, and when we talk about the quatrain, we talk about in Hindi what we call chopai. What I mean to say is that there used to be three quatrains and one concluding couplet. Three quatrains, and therefore 3 multiplied 4 multiplied by 4 is equal to 12, and 2 multiplied by 1 is equal to 2, and 12 plus 2 is equal to 14. क्वेट्रेन का मतलब चौपाई, और चौपाई में 4 लाइनें होती हैं जैसा आपको पता है, और चूंकि इसमें 3 क्वेट्रेन होते थे इसलिए 3 चौपाई और 4 से गुणा किया तो 4 और 3 12, 4 4 into 3, that would be 12, and one concluding couplet. Couplet means 2 lines, दोहा, दोहे में 2 लाइनें होती हैं, and this is how it contained 14 lines. So the structure was different, and even if we look at the rhyme scheme, even the rhyme scheme was different. In the case of the Petrarchan sonnet, the rhyme scheme was A B B A A B B A C D C C D. This was the rhyme scheme by and large. But if we look at the sonnet, the Shakespearean sonnet, we shall find that the rhyme scheme was A B B C C D D E E F F G G. This was the rhyme scheme. So even the rhyme scheme was different as far as the Shakespearean sonnet is concerned. Shakespearean sonnet was introduced into English by Surrey, as we have studied him, the Earl of Surrey, right? The Earl of Surrey, it was introduced by him into English poetry, and therefore it came to be known as English sonnet. Right, so this was in total something about the sonnet. Now, after having talked about this, if we talk about the theme of the poetry that came into being during this era, we shall find that basically the poetry dealt with the courtly love or the worldly love, and it was a chivalric product of the 12th century in France. Now, if you look at the way this courtly love was idealized in poetry, it was idealized through mind unification, it was idealized through body unification, and they thought that when we talk about mind unification and body unification, that unification must be apparent. So if we look at the theme, we shall find that the literature of this era followed the courtly love traditions. The traditions which were there in the courtly love, they were followed by these writers. And secondly, if we look at the theme of time, we shall find that time in Renaissance as a theme underwent a twofold treatment. There was twofold treatment of the theme. Number one, on the one hand, you will find that the poet focuses on the needs of the time. But then, on the other hand, you will find that it was beauty and love that found space in the poetry or in the literature that was written during this era. So these were basically the main features of the time which I have tried to summarize. Now, parallel to Renaissance, in fact, Reformation, it was because of Reformation that Renaissance came into being. And therefore, if you talk about the end of the Middle Ages ended with the event or by the occurrence or the end of the Middle Ages was coincided by the occurrence of the Reformation. And in Hindi, if we try to summarize this Reformation, then there would be, or if I try to tell you the Hindi meaning of this word Reformation, I would say it was nothing but Dharma Sudhar Andolan. Dharma Sudhar Andolan, this is what Reformation is. If you look at Reformation in India also, it began in the 6th century BC when Lord Mahavira and Lord Buddha they, they descended on this earth, and then they tried to eliminate Hinduism from the evils that had that had entered into it. And thereafter, in the 19th century also, we find that there was a unique sort of reformation that took place, and it began with Raja Ram Mohan, and then it continued up till Swami Vivekananda, and then Theosophical Society, and so on and so forth. Now, similarly, there was a reformation in Europe also, and it was because of this reformation. Why did this reformation occur? Because these people, there was an awakening because of the things which were happening in Italy. There was awakening among the people. And what was the awakening? The awakening was that now we did have a very glorious past, and therefore we need not accept everything blindly that comes from the church. And therefore, everything that came from the church was questioned. And it was this questioning spirit that was named this questioning spirit was concretized in the spirit of in the form of Renaissance. Dharma Sudhar Andolan, there was absolute corruption. The people working in the church had become corrupt. Now people wanted to eliminate this corruption. They said we that the place where the corruption lives, a religion cannot flourish. All right, and this they started saying because of the Renaissance spirit, because of the questioning spirit that prevailed among the people of the contemporary times. So, as I said to you earlier, also that the because of the cultural interaction between the East and the West, and the rediscovery of the ancient manuscript made the people feel, or made the people of the Europe feel, that even their past was very glorious, and that enthused their interest into their own glorious past. And this enthusing of interest into their own glorious past came to be known as a reawakening or renaissance. Now, if we look at these things, we will find that it was big with Martin Luther that Reformation began. You must have heard the name the great Martin Luther, the Martin the Reformer, with whom the Reformation began. And what he did, he did not accept the authority of the church, and he believed that everything that was being done in the Catholic Church was not acceptable to him. And therefore, a new branch of Christianity came into being that was given the name Protestantism. That was given the name Protestantism. And this did have a great impact. This did have a great impact on the working of the people. Now the question arises, the Reformation began with Martin Luther. Very true. But where did it begin? Yes, Raj, where did it begin? Do you remember the place where it began?
Martin Luther.
Martin Luther was the person who initiated
Yes, sir.
Reformation. But
Yes, sir. But
where Reformation began? Where Reformation began?
in Europe,
It began in Wittenberg. Wittenberg. Remember the name Wittenberg.
it,
Wittenberg. Wittenberg. It began in Wittenberg. It is the city where the Reformation began, and then it was from this place that it spread over the whole of Europe.
okay, sir.
It spread over Wittenberg, Wittenberg, right? Wittenberg. Remember this name. And Martin Luther was the person who introduced or with whom Reformation began because he challenged the authority of the church and he said that every practice, everything that is being done by the church is not acceptable to him. Now the question arises, the Renaissance began in Italy, as I said to you. The Renaissance began in Italy. Now, how was it that the Renaissance began in Italy? How was it that Renaissance, what were the regions that this Renaissance began only in Italy? And basically, if you look at the history of Italy, you will come to know that there was prominently some three regions for the thriving of Renaissance in Italy. Number one, there has grown up or there has emerged a wealthy merchant class in Italy. There has emerged a wealthy merchant class in Italy. Wealthy merchant class, or so the emergence of wealthy merchant class, number one. That was one of the regions, and therefore they did have enough resources to spend, right? Enough resources to spend. यानी कि किसका उदय हुआ? मर्चेंट, जो कि वेल्दी थे, जो कि धन वाले थे, समृद्धिशाली मर्चेंट क्लास का अभ्युदय. That was one of the reasons. And then the second reason was that the people became aware, the people of Italy were aware of the glorious past of Greece and Rome. And how they became aware? They became aware because there were the poets like Petrarch who were working incessantly to tell the people that our culture was very glorious. So these people were aware of the glorious cultural heritage of Greece and Rome. Greece means Yunnan. And then there was another region also. And the third reason was that the individual literature flourished here. The individual literature flourished here. So there were two prominent regions. Number one, emergence of the wealthy merchant class. Number two, that the people were aware of the classical heritage of the people of Italy were aware of the classical heritage of Rome and Greece. Now, the another significant point of this age was that the city states also came into being during this period. City states. And the beginning was again, the beginning was made by 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 Italy. It was in northern Italy that for the first time the city states began to emerge. And one such place, there were a number of merchants, and there was a person. There were two very famous cities. Do you remember the name of those famous cities of Italy? Florence and Milan. Florence and Milan, Milan and Florence. Now it was in Florence that there was a family called Medici, and they developed their own bank. And when the city state emerged, at least there were two these city states, they were very powerful. The Milan, number one, and number two, the Florence. It was in Florence that even the powerful banks, they came into being, and there was a powerful bank that was introduced by the family called Medici, Medice. And all these things, they brought prosperity. They brought prosperity. And when the person becomes prosperous, what they would do, they would try to snatch power also. So the prosperity was there, but then these people did not have power. So they wanted to snatch power from the people of the church who who held the power in their hands. So basically, it was a movement against the corruption and to snatch the power from the church or from the authorities of the church. And therefore, what the people did, the people looked back. The people looked back. The people looked back to their classical literature, their classic literature, and they said that we were very glorious in the past, and the same glory can again be brought if we decide to develop a questioning spirit. Means we will not follow everything blindly that comes from the church. And as a result, there was a shift. What was the shift? The shift was that earlier the people would talk about the deities. Means if I write something, I would be writing something in the appreciation of a god or a goddess. And therefore, poetry was not, in a sense, represented the human being or the concerns of humanity or the concerns of mankind. Basically, the poetry was in the form of psalms. भजन के रूप में poetry थी, which has no concerns for the welfare of the mankind. And therefore, there was a shift. This questioning spirit gave a shift, and this spirit inculcated the spirit of humanism, the spirit of humanism in poetry. And as a result, it was the subject of human concern that started to be given a space in poetry. And the result was that now the religious poetry was replaced by the poetry of love and beauty. A shift, look at the shift that came. The religious poetry, Divine Dante, Divine Comedy by Dante, or Boccaccio's writings, they were all religious. Now there was a shift. When Petrarch started writing, he would not be talking about religiosity, but he would be talking about love and beauty in his sonnets. And this was very well responded by the people of the time. And therefore, there was a shift, and this shift was because of the spirit of Renaissance. People started questioning this questioning, and therefore they shifted. They said that religion, it is not all religion that can bring welfare to the people or that can elevate the human being or the mankind. It is basically the concerns of the humans that will elevate the mankind. And therefore there was a shift. As far, there was a thematic shift. The thematic shift in the sense that earlier it was the religious, the poetry related to religion that was dominant, but now this dominant poetry, this dominant theme was replaced by the theme of love and beauty. Not only this, poetry became secular also. Literature became secular also. It was not religious. As I said to you, besides the subject of beauty and love, there were the subjects which did have the worldly concerns. They were given a space in these poetic works, in these works of literature. And as a result, there were people, there were people who emerged as the patrons of arts. And these patrons of art were given the name Renaissance man and Renaissance woman. These patrons of art were given the name Renaissance man and Renaissance woman. You need to remember these names, Renaissance man and Renaissance woman. Now, these were the people who would patronize art. Who would patronize art? Now, there is a writing, and the title of that writing means it was a book, The Courtier, and this book was written by Castiglione. You can write down the name of the book, the Courtier. Courtier, the courtier. And the author of this book was Casti, Castiglione. Castiglione. This was the name of the writer who wrote this book. And it is in this book that he talks about, he categorizes the patrons of art sex wise or gender wise into Renaissance man and Renaissance woman. Now, if we look at these Renaissance man and Renaissance woman, what we find that this Renaissance revolutionized art. And as I said to you, this revolutionarism can be seen in the field of architecture, in the field of sculpture, in the field of painting, and then in the field of literature. Now I will begin with the revolution that could be seen, that could be witnessed in these fields. Now, if we look at the sculpture and painting, now basically in sculpture also there were certain writers, but primarily it was in painting that a revolution occurred. Now there were the artists like Leonardo da Vinci. You must have heard the name of this artist, Leonardo da Vinci. If you have not heard, you must know something about him. And he prepared the paintings. What is the famous painting? Okay, tell me. What is the famous painting of Leonardo da Vinci? He was a famous
Yes,
painter of the time. Yes?
yes, I, yes, I
Yes, what is the
want.
name of the famous painting?
Uh, I'm not remembering right now, sir.
Mona Lisa. Remember now. Mona Lisa.
Mona
All
Lisa,
right,
yes, sir.
Mona Lisa. That was one of the famous painting that became world famous. Right? So that was the painting that he prepared. And the another famous painting that he prepared was the Last Supper. Remember these two names, Mona
Yes,
Lisa and the Last Supper. Now he prepared this painting in such a way that the woman seems to be lively. It seems that this woman is lively because because of the smile and everything that is visible on the face of the lady. And then in the Last Supper, what he did was, Leonardo da Vinci, what he did was that in this painting, he shows that the personalities of Jesus Christ has been shown in this, and it is being done through the facial expressions. It is when he was given the Last Supper, all right, and after that, one of the disciples he served Jesus the poison, and this is how he died. All right, so that painting and expressions through the facial expressions of Jesus, they have been beautifully given space or depicted or painted or picturized in that painting. Now, the another famous painter of the time was Raphael, and Raphael took the concept of realism ahead. Now, earlier it was not realism. People will talk about spiritualism, people will talk about religion, but now there was a shift from religion to realism, from religion to realism, and it was what I would say, uh, that it was intensified by the paintings of Raphael. Now, Raphael, he was younger than Michelangelo, no doubt about it. And his famous painting, you write the name of his famous painting. The famous painting was School of Athens. School of Athens. Athens. Raphael's famous painting. School of Athens. Now, in this School of Athens, what he has done is he has shown himself and the students, all right, who are there, all right, who have been the part, means in this painting it is the student and the painter himself who has been shown. Now Michelangelo was the third person who was also a very famous painter of the era. He also made paintings, but then his paintings was the paintings prepared by Michelangelo were not so famous as the paintings of Leonardo da Vinci and Raphael. After having talked about this, this was the impact in the field of painting, sculpture, and architecture. Of course, in the architecture also, but primarily, since we are concerned with literature, we will be looking at the literary input that came into being during this time. So there were two prominent poets who were there on the scene, and as I said, both of them belonged to Italy. One was Petrarch and the other one was Boccaccio. One was Petrarch, 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 who wrote Petrarchan sonnet, and the other one was Boccaccio, who wrote Decameron, Boccacio, Boccaccio, who wrote Decameron. Now, if we look at Petrarch, we will find that he introduced sonnet, and these sonnets basically they are about a mysterious woman who has been named as Laura by Petrarch. And this lady has been depicted as an ideal, Laura. Remember this name, Laura. Now, in fact, little is known of Laura except that she died of the plague in 1348. You must be aware of this fact. When I was talking about Chaucer, I said that the plague, there was an outbreak of plague during that time, means between 13th and 14th century, and this event took place in the year, let us say, around uh, 1348 to 1350. And this lady Laura, she died during that plague, like we do have corona right now. Corona is a pandemic, it was an epidemic. Pandemic and epidemic, there is a little difference. Pandemic, it belongs to several places. It is almost world over, pandemic. And when we talk about epidemic, it belongs to more than one country. But then, or maybe it belongs to one country, but then its impact, means the loss of life is equally immense in that country. But pandemic is the disease which is which has spread world over. That is, this is the basic difference between the two. Right, so you need to remember that he wrote sonnets. Petrarch wrote sonnets, and these sonnets, the themes of these sonnets were beauty and love. And there is a lady who has been depicted in these sonnets, and the name of the lady was Laura, Laura, and she was an ideal for Petrarch. Nothing is known about this lady, but it is being said that she died due to plague in 1348. Now, if we talk about Boccaccio, Boccaccio, as I said to you earlier, he wrote Decameron. Sometimes off color stories. And when I talk about off color, I means the pessimistic story, right? Realistic pessimistic stories. And the stories are told by a group of worldly young people waiting in a rural villa to avoid the plague sweeping through Florence. Now look at the things, how the contemporary things, the contemporary setting. It is a series of realistic, pessimistic short stories. And these short stories are being narrated by young people who are staying in a villa because the city of Florence has been overtaken by the spread of plague. Decameron, right? You need to remember this name. You need to remember the name of Laura. You need to remember the name of Boccaccio. You need to remember the name of Petrarch. You need to remember the name Leonardo da Vinci. You need to remember the names of the two famous paintings of Leonardo da Vinci. They were Mona Lisa and The Last Supper. And then you need to remember the name of Raphael also. And in the painting of Raphael, what he has done is the name of the painting is Schools of Athens, and then Angelo also. His paintings are not so famous as the paintings of the other two painters are, and then these writers. Now the question arises how Renaissance changed the literature. Have you heard something about Machiavelli? Machiavelli,
Machiavelli.
are you aware of Machiavelli? Yes. He also belonged to the same era. That is why I am asking this question to you.
Okay, sir. Sir,
Machiavelli, yes.
sir.
I said to you when I was talking about Bacon, I said Bacon's essays are also known as Machiavellian
Okay.
advice to the common man.
Yes, sir.
Machiavelli was a philosopher. He belonged to Europe. All right, he was also a philosopher. He wrote a book, and the name of the book was The Prince. What was the name of the book? The name of the book was The Prince. Remember this name. Now, like sometimes Machiavelli is compared with Chanakya. Machiavelli is compared with Chanakya, but the basic difference between the two was that Chanakya was moralistic to the core. He would believe in honesty, he will believe in moralism, he will believe in integrity, he will believe in loyalty. But on the other hand, nobody has talked about whether these merits were there in Machiavelli also. But they are similar in the sense that even Chanakya wrote a book. What is the name of that book? Arthasastra.
Yes, sir.
All right, he wrote the book Arthasastra, and in Arthasastra, what he talks about that how a king can gain power or how a king can become powerful by snatching power from the other kings. Now, the same thing has been talked about by Machiavelli also in the book The Prince. Now, this is a book which is written in question answer method. Now, in answering the questions, what he says that most people are selfish, fickle, and corrupt. This is how the book is in the dialogue form. And this is how, now look at the change. Earlier, people will not say anything about the human being, and at least they will not comment upon the derivation of the human being. But now, they will comment upon the derivation of the human being. Derogatory nature of human being. I'm sorry I lost the connection earlier.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Raj, I lost the connection. Now I am back. Now, in
Okay, sir.
fact, the time is also going to be over. So,
Yes,
what we
sir.
will do is we have done up till Machiavelli. All right, and from
Okay.
Machiavelli, we would begin from the Vittoria Colonna, that is the women writers who gained fame during the Renaissance period. Vittoria Colonna. You can write down the name Vittoria Colonna.
Okay, sir.
Vittoria Colonna. And I have uploaded some study material also
Yes, sir.
on the common WhatsApp, and
Yes,
I
sir.
have given the instructions also. That is the study material prepared by me for a correspondence university, for a
Okay.
distance university, and they are very beautiful means notes. This is what I would say, of the age from Renaissance to is Jacobean age. Now you can consult those notes. You can
Yes.
consult those notes and can prepare your answers by having read those notes also. But all the things which I have narrated here, you may not find all those things there. So you need to take
Yes.
down these things also as a part of
Yes.
your means when I keep speaking, you need to write these things, right? Otherwise you will be wondering that sir was telling these things, but these things are not here. So in fact, they will basically both of them are complementary to each other, and if you combine both of them, then they will make the whole study material on that particular unit. Right?
Okay, sir.
Okay. Bye bye then. Tomorrow is Sunday, so we will meet day after tomorrow. That is on Monday now.
Okay,
Okay.
sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye, bye, sir.